משפט אחד לגבי המקום החם ביותר בארץ, דרום. קצין ניו זילנדי במלחמת העולם הראשונה שהסתובב בבקעה, עכשיו אנחנו 100 שנה למלחמת העולם, יש כנס יומיים ועוד יומיים על מלחמת העולם. קיצורו של דבר, קצין ניו זילנדי בבקעת הירדן אמר וכתב אחרי זה: לשווא טרח בורא העולם וברא את הגיהנום בשעה שהיה לו את בקעת הירדן תחת היד. כתב את זה ביולי-אוגוסט ככה, ב-18. אני מזמין את דוקטור בריאנט ווד שידבר על המשלחת שאת דויד ליבינגסטון בחיר בתל מקטיר. מי שמכיר, מי שלא מכיר, תכף אנחנו נראה את זה. אנחנו מדברים על האזור של בית אל, למעלה בהר, לא על האזור של הבקעה. לאט לאט אנחנו הולכים ומתפרסים על כל אזור ההר. אולי משפט אחד. בשעתו כתבתי על יריחו ספר מכובד כזה, יריחו היהודית לדורותיה. כל הביבליוגרפיה שישנה שם היא ביבליוגרפיה בעברית, חוץ ממאמר אחד. מאמר אחד הוא מאמר של דוקטור ווד, שלמעשה לא חפר ביריחו, אלא חפר בדוח החפירות של קטלין קניון ביריחו, ולמעשה הראה במאמר שמה שהיא כותבת בספר הפופולרי שלה, והנפוץ והידוע והמוכר, אין חומות יהושע, ולא חשפנו את יריחו אלא סחפנו את יריחו, זה מאוד לא מדויק. תמונה אחרת זה גם לעולם מדוח החפירות. דוקטור ווד? Please.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to thank Aaron and the organizers of the conference for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here and to have a part in this session dedicated to the memory of David Livingston. I'd also like to thank Amos Ehrlich for coming. Unfortunately, he had to leave, so he's not here to hear my remarks, but I especially like to thank him for his support of the Kerbert-Nisya excavation over many years. He provided a lot of help to us and encouragement, and he was a great friend to our work there. I'd also like to thank Yaakov Ehrlich, Amos's brother, who has been helping us at our new site, Kerbet Maqatir, doing the layout of our squares. And so we've gotten a lot of help from local Israelis, and we certainly appreciate that. Could I have the next slide, please? Sorry, I thought I had a picture of David Livingston. Never mind. Before I get into the discussion of the site of Kerbet Maqatir, I just wanted to say a little bit about David Livingston, so you get to know him a little bit better. I don't speak Hebrew, so I don't know everything that Amos said about him, but I think he was talking about David's work at Nisya and the relationship there. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on David Livingston. He was born September 18th, 1925 in Des Moines, Iowa. He was the son of a farmer, and in fact David himself had planned on being a farmer like his father, but that changed as he went along in life. He died last November 25th, 2013 at age 88. He served his country in the Navy in World War II. When he came back from the war, he went to college. He got a degree in science initially, a bachelor's degree, and then he went on to seminary. Then he served as a missionary in Korea for 10 years, 1956 to 1966. During that time, he came to Israel to study for a semester at the American Institute of Holy Land Studies. And it was at that time that he became interested in archaeology and decided he would like to come to Israel to do some archaeological work. In 1969, he started the Associates for Biblical Research, the organization that sponsored the dig at Khirbet Nisya, and is sponsoring our dig at Khirbet el-Maqatir. This is a nonprofit organization, and it was started for the purpose of doing archaeological work in Israel. In 1979, he began the excavation at Khirbet Nisya, and that lasted until the year 2000. And over that span of years, David led 16 seasons of excavation at Khirbet Nisya. Along the way, David was able to work on his doctorate degree, and he received that degree in 1989, a PhD in archaeology from Andrews University. So that just gives you a little bit of his background. He was an amazing man. He accomplished much, and we're just so thankful for his contribution to archaeology in Israel. And we are carrying on now from the foundation he laid at Khirbet Nisya and are continuing to do archaeological work at Khirbet el-Maqatir, and that's the excavation I would like to talk to you about this morning. You can see on the map there that after the Israelites conquered Jericho, then they went up to the highlands, and there they attacked Ai, as it's recorded in Joshua 7 and 8. David's work at Nisya was an attempt to locate Ai, and we are really carrying that on at our site of Khirbet el-Maqatir. Okay. Oops. Here we see the location of our site, right here, and it's on a major crossroads, north-south Central Ridge Road, and then the east-west Jaffa to Amman Road. So it's at a strategic location. This doesn't want to advance. We're glad we pointed at the Well, this is the first time I've seen this talk, because it was in English, of course, when I wrote it up. So now there's been Hebrew added, and do we have this in English or not? Just Hebrew? I can't read my own slides. Okay, here we go. Good. So in the book of Joshua, we have a lot of detail about the site of Ai, and we have two sort of categories of evidence or requirements. One would be topographical, and here we have 6 different things mentioned there that we should expect to find if we are to locate Ai. So we see, first of all, it should be strategically important. Joshua, of course, just didn't pick any old place to attack. It had to have some military significance. So we would expect Ai to be strategically important. Then we're told in Joshua chapter 7, verse 2, that it was near the site of Beth Aven. Third, it was east of and near Bethel. Again, Joshua 7:2, also that's mentioned in chapter 12, verse 9. There should be an ambush site between Bethel and Ai, and Ai should be located east of Bethel, or Bethel west of Ai. Several passages indicate that. And then we have the mention of a hill north of Ai where Joshua placed most of the army. So we need a militarily significant hill to the north of Ai. And then we should have a shallow valley between Ai and that hill to the north. And we'll see more about that in a moment. Here's a photo from Khirbet el-Maqatir looking south toward Jerusalem, and you can see that we have clear line of sight communication between Khirbet el-Maqatir and Jerusalem. Jerusalem is 9 miles to the south from Khirbet el-Maqatir, so it would be very easy to signal from Khirbet el-Maqatir to Jerusalem. And we believe the strategic importance of Ai was that it was a northern border outpost for the city-state of Jerusalem to warn if anybody is coming from the north to attack Jerusalem. And so the site of Ai, or Khirbet el-Maqatir, would have provided early warning to the city-state of Jerusalem. Well, I think we skipped over. Could we go back? We're up to number 4. Let's go back to number 2. Okay, next one. Thank you. All right, good. Here we go. So here's the map showing the location of Khirbet el-Maqatir. Nisya is located right here, and we're just a short distance. Here's Nisya, just a few kilometers to the northeast is our site of Khirbet el-Maqatir. And our second requirement is that it's near Beth Aven. And from our research, we believe Beth Aven should be located at Beitin. It's very close to Beitin. And then our third requirement is that it should be east of and near Bethel. And again, from our research, particularly the research of David Livingston, he has shown, I think, quite clearly that Bethel should be located here at El Bir. So our site is clearly east of El Bir. Next. Now the matter of the ambush, this is a very specific geographical requirement because it requires a hiding place for a large force of soldiers. And we have such a location just to the west of our site, located here, in this wadi, very deep wadi named the Wadi Shaban. And from the bottom of that valley, you could hide a large number of men that could not be seen from Khirbet el-Maqatir because of this ridge, nor could it be seen from Bethel over here because, again, some hills are in the way. So that would be a perfect ambush site for the ambush that's described in Joshua chapter 8. Next. Oops. Okay. Could we just go back one? Okay. This shows the hill that is north of Khirbet el-Maqatir. It sort of looks like a ridge, but actually it's the highest point in the whole region. And so from that vantage point, Joshua's generals could see the whole theater of operation and see where Joshua's force was and where the ambush force was and so on. And so here we read in Joshua 8:11 that the entire force that was with Joshua marched up, approached the city, and arrived in front of it. This is very important. We'll come back to that in a moment. They set up camp north of Ai with a valley between them and the city. So there's our militarily significant hill north of Ai. And then in Joshua 8:13, we read that Joshua went into the valley between that hill and Ai. And when the king of Ai I saw this, he and all his men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle. Joshua spent the night in that valley with a small force. And so the king of Ai, in the morning, could come out and see the army or the force right there in front of him. And so that valley was very shallow. I see our time is running out very quickly here. Okay, let's go forward. We've seen that one. Okay, I'm sorry, go back. Go back, please. And this is the archaeological requirements now. It should be smaller than Gibeon. Joshua 10:2. Obviously, it should be fortified in the 15th century BC, the time of Joshua, late Bronze 1. There should be a gate on the north side, Joshua 8:11. There should be evidence of destruction by fire at the end of the 15th century. And there's the mention of women there. And then we're told in Joshua 8:28 that it would be a tel olam, a ruin forever. So we have 6 archaeological requirements in addition to the 6 topographical requirements. Next, please. Here's the plan of our site showing all of the areas that we have excavated. And we have on the southeast slope of the site most of the archaeological remains, but up on the hill we have the remains of a monastery, Byzantine monastery. Next, please. And then there's some fenced-in agricultural plots that are covering archaeological material. And unfortunately, we can't go in there to excavate. Let me go back. All right. Here is the plan that we have so far uncovered of the earliest phase of occupation, which was a small fortress, about 10 dunams or so in size. And this site, or this phase, was largely robbed out by later occupation. So we're only left with remnants and bits and pieces, but enough to enable us to determine that there was a fortress there, and we can date the fortress. So we have one chamber of the gate here, and from what we found, we believe it was a 4-chamber gate. We have remnants of the wall, very wide wall, about 4 meters wide. So this fulfills the requirement that it be fortified. Of course, a gate is mentioned several times in Joshua 7 and 8. So we know it was fortified. And then this very specific requirement that the gate be on the north side. Remember when we put up the verse about Joshua coming up to Ai with the army? He came in front of Ai on the north side. And the front of Ai would be where the gate was located, the entrance. And so that gate should be on the north side of the fortress, and that's exactly what we have here at our site. Next, please. Here's the remnants of that passageway, and we found right here 3 socket stones.
תודתנו לדוקטור אלסטר שתרם 5 דקות יקרות, מחיאות כפיים ספונטניות.
So we have 2 lower socket stones that we found for the gate pivot, and then 1 upper socket stone here. Next, please. One of those socket stones we found in our first year of excavation. We began work in 1995, and we worked until the year 2000, and then we were interrupted by the Intifada, so we weren't able to work for a number of years, but in 2009 we took up the work again, and have continued every year since then. So here you see the gate socket stone visible right on the surface. Next, please. There's just another picture of the same socket stone. Next. And that would be the piece that was in the ground for the pivot of the gate to rotate on. Next. And here's the upper socket stone found at the end of the southern pier of the gate. Next, please. It has a hole through it, as you see there, for the upper part of the post to rotate it. Next, please. And then here's the second gate socket stone that we found. And this has been carved out to provide, I guess, a stop for the door as it swung open and closed. Next, please. Then last season in 2013, we found a 3rd lower socket stone just to the east of the gate. And there you see that. Next, please. Here is a pottery from a pavement just inside the gate, a clay bedding for a stone pavement. And what you see at the bottom here is pottery from the clay. Probably represents the construction phase of the fortress. And this pottery dates to end of the Middle Bronze, beginning of Late Bronze, perhaps around 1500 BC. And then the pottery was on the surface of that flagstone pavement, and it's just a bit later, maybe around 1400 BC, end of Late Bronze 1. Next, please. We had 2 very important finds made in 2013, and then another one in this season, 2014. The first one, 2013, right in this area, and the second one this year in this area. Now, you can see we're just east of the entry gate, and the dotted lines here, I don't know if you can see them very well, but they represent a later structure from the late Hellenistic, early Roman period. And so these were finds beneath that structure. Next, please. The one found this year is here. This is a scarab, of course, and it's the motif is a very common motif for the second intermediate period, from the late Bronze 3 period. We know that it was locally made because the engraver didn't understand his hieroglyphs. This is supposed to be an Ankh sign, and he has separated the two parts of the Ankh. The loop here should be touching here, and so he made two signs out of one sign, indicating that clearly this was a Canaanite engraver, not an Egyptian engraver. So, which is typical of all of the Second Intermediate Period scarabs found in Israel. They're all locally made by non-Egyptians. The concentric circles, that's a common motif from this time period. So this helps us to date the beginning of our portraits. Next, please. Okay, thank you. The scarab found in 2013 comes, the one we found this year was from a context. It wasn't a good archaeological context. The one we found last year was from a secure archaeological context below the fill for that late Hellenistic structure. Here's a depiction of that fill. Here's the elevations, ground level up here. Next, please. Then below the mixed fill, we have a layer here of ash for 10 centimeters. Then we have some flat stones, and then next, please, under that is a layer right over bedrock, in situ, late Bronze 1 material with several sherds from late Bronze 1. Next, please. And this is where our scarab was found, just a couple centimeters off bedrock in this late Bronze 1 layer. And here is the scarab. It is clearly fashioned in Egypt. The quality is very high. And so this dates to the early 18th dynasty. The figure that's represented here is a falcon-headed sphinx. It's quite rare, and ours has some very specific attributes. First of all, the breast of the falcon is shown. Usually that is not shown. The head is attached directly to the body of the lion. Then you see it has stick legs rather than a good representation, physical representation. The legs are simply straight lines, and there's no feet shown on the figure. We have an Ankh sign here in front, and then the sign for God above the back of the lion. It's depicting Pharaoh as the God, the good God, the God of life. Next slide. Okay, I don't have my parallels. But anyway, here's the pottery from that fill here. Again, late Bronze 1 pottery. And then the pottery that was found with the scarab is shown here, late Bronze 1 toward the end of the 15th century BC. Next, please. There's just a close-up again of our scarab showing the details of the figure. Next. I do have my parallels. Good. This type of a figure, falcon-headed sphinx, was fairly common, or at least the most have been found in the reign of Thutmose III and Amenhotep II. Our scarab most closely resembles the examples from the reign of Amenhotep II. You can see, for example, this one showing the breast, 2 minutes, okay, and the other stick figures and so on, clearly dating our scarab to the reign of Amenhotep II. Next, please. We have found much evidence of fire across the site, as you can see from this reddened bedrock in the gate passageway. Next, please. Here's our part of our northern wall, 40 meters wide. Next, please. You have to rush through these. Next, please. And this shows a cross-section of the wall with a later addition from the Hasmonean period. Next period. Next slide. The mention of women in this passage, Joshua 8:25, seems unusual that there be women in the fortress. Next, please. But we found right here, just inside the gate, next please, a jar burial, infant jar burial, with the pottery typical of around 1500 BC, the beginning of the fortress. Next please. There's the burial jar. The remains were inserted from the bottom. Next please. And here's Marina Fairman organizing the bones that were found around the jar. Next, please. There they are. Next, please. And it was a neonate just around the time of birth. Died just before or just after that time. Next, please. So this is clear evidence that there were women in the fortress. A ruin forever. If you visit the site, you can see the evidence for that. Next, please. And here's our group from 2013, and that, I don't think we have the other slide up there. I do have a slide with a reference for an article I wrote on the search for Joshua's Eye. You can get that online, and also another article that is fairly recent that gives an overview of the work at Herbert Maqatir. I'm sorry I don't have that up on the screen, but I can give you that information if you would like. Thank you so much.